I'm Kyle with New Gamer Nation. I'm here with Z and Kevin, and we have executive producer, and we're talking about The King's Bird today. And it's a precision platformer, and you're shooting for a Windows release initially, right?
Yeah, PC and Mac initially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, initially. Consoles down the road, hopefully.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, I played the game, and it's precision platformer. In your press email, you mentioned Super Meat Boy, Dust Force as kind of inspirations, but there's kind of a twist. Depending on the angle that you land, you kind of have a dash forward that your character automatically does. And then in addition to that, you hold down the right bumper on the controller, turn into a bird, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. And you kind of fly along through the levels. So why don't you talk about what were your inspirations and how did you come up with those specific mechanics and adding that to the formula of precision platformers, because that's not something that we normally see in those titles like Electronic Super Joy or Super Meat Boy. So how did you come up with those? Were those the initial thoughts and then the game was formed around it, or vice versa? How did that work?
Yeah, absolutely. The games like Dust Force really inspired us in terms of game design. When we first started working on The King's Bird, one of the first things we wanted to do is to empower players through three key concepts: freedom, flight, and flow. And with those three concepts in mind, we essentially designed the mechanics around them. Like having really tight, precise controls in the game, and also having that flow, that momentum going. Those are all things that we really focused on, and it took us so many months to try to perfect it. In the beginning, when we first started, we knew that we wanted that cloak mechanic, because when you play games like Dust Force, a lot of it is very precise, but it's really hard to get into it, and it's very hard for a mass audience, for example, to try to understand what's going on. In our game, we made it much more intuitive, something that we wanted to inspire players who may not be very interested in precision platformers, with the art style that we chose and everything like that, to kind of with these more easier to grasp kind of controls to get into the game.
So how do you balance? I'm assuming that this game is going to be difficult. Maybe I'm just bad at it, but I died it a few times in the tutorial level and the challenge level after that. And at the end, it shows a death counter. How do you balance the game being difficult and not making it frustrating for the player?
With the game, one of the ideas that we had is that we want players to go through the level. I mean, people who are casual gamers, we want these gamers to go through the levels, go through the world, explore the world, understand the story. We have a pretty emotional story inside the game as well. So, kind of go through that experience without having the hassle of, trying to perfect every single level. And then we added the complexity of, the replay system, the online scoreboard system, and all that, to make it so that players who are really interested in perfecting their score, getting the lowest amount of score possible in the world, they're able to do that as well. So we definitely combined the two together to make this more of an accessible precision platformer.
You mentioned the story, and I'm curious because I don't really know too much about the story. So could you talk about just give us a little what you can talk about the story right now, and also how you're delivering the story through this gameplay? I know Super Meat Boy does the kind of cutscenes in between levels and just tells a very rudimentary story, but you just described your story as emotional. So how does it get those emotional beats across?
So the story is that it's called The King's Bird. It's pretty obvious that it's referring to the main character, a little girl. So essentially, the player plays this girl that's trapped inside this kingdom that's ruled by a tyrant king. And the girl is trying to escape the kingdom at first to find freedom, and this king is kind of keeping a cage on everyone inside the kingdom. Well, the girl finally does escape, finds all these powers, able to go out of the kingdom, and then eventually she tries to tear down the barrier, try to free the people of this kingdom, free them of this tyrannical, king. But that's when the player realizes, as soon as you tear down this barrier, there's a reason why this barrier existed to begin with. And I won't dig too much deeper into the story, but there's definitely a very a lot of I guess balance between order and freedom and tyranny and chaos, and we want the players to draw their own conclusions on just exactly what should exactly happen in this world. We're not trying to push any ideas on anyone.